I've been waiting on the sunset, bills on my mindset, I can't deny.
So, first of all, thank you for taking the time.
Oh, my pleasure.
I am aware that you are a busy man, and it is kind of you for...
No, it's my pleasure.
So, let me just ask, is there a way that you would recommend a small not-for-profit in a city get connected to begin with the city government?
Well, there's probably a couple of ways. At least in my experience. One is to use a conduit that the mayor or whomever is familiar with. If there is someone in the community that knows the organization, knows the mission, perhaps knows the executive director, or knows some of the board members, any connection that the agency can make with a power broker, for lack of a better term, in the community that can help them get access to the city council or to the mayor. So that's one way, is to use someone to get in through the back door. A second way is to get to somehow gain access to the mayor or whomever in an informal setting. If you happen to see them at some function where he or she is a little more relaxed and you don't have to go through the formal process of scheduling a meeting or whatever. But those are a couple of ways. Of course, the standard way is to actually schedule a meeting. Problem is, if the mayor or his staff don't know who you are, then you end up being amongst a whole bunch of other people who they don't know. So probably the best way is to try to use someone to network for you. That's probably the most successful approach. And I meet with a number of agencies ultimately because my friends, my acquaintances, my colleagues know who they are.
Let's say we do meet somebody who knows you and we are able to get a meeting. Is there good language or what kind of stuff should a not-for-profit say there?
Because normally you don't have much time in the first meeting, 15 minutes, 30 minutes at the most, you need to make an initial very positive first impression. When you first meet me, obviously, let me know who you are, what your agency is, and then get right to the point. The reason I'm here is it's also a good idea to bring some supporting documentation. Now, again, don't bring me War and Peace because I just won't have the time to read that. But a synopsis, a Reader's Digest version, if you will, that I can peruse, and I can also have a staff member who I'm ultimately going to assign to work on this initiative with me that they can read and get comfortable with. On the first meeting, particularly, I would not ask for money because I don't know you. I don't know your agency. I'm just beginning to establish a relationship. And if you go right into a monetary request, that puts me at a real disadvantage because I would like to say yes, perhaps, but I don't know you. And I really don't want to say no. Most elected officials, they want to help. They want to be able to position themselves to help you financially or otherwise. Most politicians are really good people. Now, if you just want to know if I could ultimately give you a letter of support, that's not so difficult because again I can read the documentation, and I would probably say to you, let me read the documentation, let me meet with my staff. I might call you later on for some additional information, but it sounds like I could probably do that, a letter. That's not so difficult. But if you're going to ask me for money or for me to assign a staff member to work with you on a particular initiative, it's going to take another meeting.
Gotcha.
Or it's going to take my deputy mayor or my head of a division to sit down with you and talk further.
So how would you suggest the kind of follow-up meeting? Is that something that we would request?
You can request it. A lot of times if I'm asked, Mayor, I know your time is limited. I'd like to follow up. Is there a staff member?
Okay.
that I can meet with. Because normally I don't meet with a lot of people on a second and third time. I normally assign them to a staff. So by you taking initiative, saying, Mayor, I know you got a lot on your plate, I know how busy you are, is there a staff member that I could talk to? Now you really relieve me of a lot of pressure.
Is there a way that that not-for-profits in particular stay on your radar? Because there's probably, there's hundreds.
Oh, there's hundreds of them. But there's some that stand out because they've networked well, that they have good people on their board, that they've stayed on track as far as what they said they were going to be doing, and they didn't deviate too much from that. That they do have good written material defining what they do. Now, here's another key to success. A real important thing to a lot of us is to put people on your board. That brings a lot of credibility, because they won't serve on a board unless they believe in what you're doing. And I get asked a lot of times, Mayor, how do I get the word out about my agency or about our mission? There are, in almost every community that has access to electronic media or to written media, every single one of those organizations has a responsibility to offer some type of PSAs or some focus on not-for-profit offerings. So I would get hold of the newspapers and say, would you like to do an article? Or have somebody write letters to the editor about what your agency is doing. Get hold of electronic media. They will give you time either in a news interview, or sometimes they have like half-hour shows offering to the community, here's what's going on in our city. Capitalize on that. Be available, or put the word out that you're willing to speak to Rotary groups, to Kiwanis groups, to all these other organizations, these fraternal organizations that have luncheons and so on. They're constantly looking for speakers. Don't forget the power of social media. Social media, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or whatever else is out there, it's free. And more people, especially the millennials, use it now as their primary source of communication. And what you need to do is to sit down as an agency and truly develop a strategic communication plan. And if you do it right, the recognition of your organization will soar above all the others who don't recognize the value of that. So,
fantastic. Well, on behalf of the Carriage House, of course, and on behalf of the whole Clubhouse community and the 10,000 people a day we see worldwide, thank you. And it means a great deal.
My pleasure entirely.